Well, I expect we'll be joined by others later, but let's get started. And so we are talking here today about how communities can increase their adaptability by cross-sector integration and power plus comms and holistic approaches. So I'd like to start with Deputy Assistant Secretary Keone Nakoa from Insular and International Affairs, Department of the Interior. Thank you so much for being with us. And then we also have, next will be Scott Sklar from the Stella Group. Then Javier Baella from REMCOOP in Puerto Rico. And then Tiffany Perry from FirstNet will wrap her up. So Desi, please.
Hello. All right. Thank you so much, Lynn. Appreciate it. Appreciate putting together this panel. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Keone Nakoa. I'm the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Insular and International Affairs at the Department of the Interior. And part which we were just talking about it. Just part of my segment of my portfolio includes the Office of Insular Affairs (OIA), which helps coordinate federal policy and other grant programs and coordination among the United States government for 4 out of the 5 United States territories, so American Samoa, Guam, the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands, and the USVI, as well as Puerto Rico. I was going to say, so it's a really good compliment that we have a friend from Puerto Rico here as well to really fill out the picture in the U.S. territories. In addition to that, we also help to coordinate assistance and programming in the freely associated states in Micronesia through a historical, I guess, what coming out of World War II, the trust territories of the Pacific Islands, then later in the 80s became the freely associated states of Federated States of Micronesia, Republic of the Marshall Islands, and the Republic of Palau. And those are independent states. However, we maintain close compact relationships with them, which we actually Congress just appropriated funding to renew economic assistance for. So the Department of the Interior helps to meet our obligations to the territories and insular areas as we continue to implement President Biden's Investing in America agenda and deliver the resources and assistance communities throughout the region really needs. In the insular areas, and I'll be using the word insular areas, and I mean that because of territories versus non-territories that we don't cover. Puerto Rico, insular areas is every of the jurisdictions that I just mentioned that we do cover. They face unique challenges due to the remote geographies. They're all islands, and so quite literally everything that they use, virtually everything they use has to be shipped from off island. Unlike in Virginia here, they can't just truck in what they need from the state next door. And in the case of our Pacific territories, they're closer in distance to Asia than they are the United States. So with regard to climate change, they are on the front lines. And while they're very small, remote, low-lying geographic areas surrounded by a vast ocean, they experience rising sea levels, king tides, more severe and frequent storms like typhoons and hurricanes. And in total, these issues pose a great threat or just heightened by their remoteness and by nature of being an island, small island communities. So residents and businesses in the territories pay an average of 2.4 times more per kilowatt hour than the U.S. average. And this disparity is largely due to the cost of importing fuels to support baseload generation capacity and the territory's inability to achieve economies of scale by participating in large interconnected grids. The territories are heavily dependent on imported fossil fuels to support these baseload energy generation. Access to reliable and affordable energy in the territories not only impacts residents' electricity and gas bills, but also their quality of life, how regularly they have access to electricity, and that means less brownouts, blackouts, just complete power outages for months at a time in the case of severe storms. On top of that, it also has a significant impact on future economic growth and development opportunities. Energy reliability impacts every sector in the territories, from healthcare to education and private industry to transportation. When we address those energy issues, we are also impacting other sectors of life in the territories. So the insular areas are keenly aware of this. Many of them have adopted ambitious goals for reducing their dependence on fossil fuels to increase energy efficiency and manage demand. They are exploring and planning to introduce and implement more renewable energies into their energy portfolio. For example, the USVI has codified a goal of 60% reduction of fossil fuel usage by 2045, and Guam has a goal of 100% of electricity purchases from renewable energies to be the reality in 2040. Yes, absolutely. The program is called Guam 100. Rather than waiting for gigantic tankers to ship petroleum on island, they are exploring how they can more self-sustainably and resiliently take advantage of their native resources, meaning native to the islands. One avenue for them to do so involves my office, OIA. OIA administers several funding programs, and I'm here to talk about just one, the Energizing Insular Communities program, which focuses on implementing sustainable energy strategies in the territories to reduce electricity and fuel costs, as well as reduce dependence on imported fuels. Under the law, each of the territories has created, with input from their local governments, utilities, and community stakeholders, a strategic energy plan or an energy action plan. These plans reflect the area's own goals of introducing renewables and energy efficiency. The plans then drive projects that they propose for funding under our EIC program. The main goal of EIC is to reduce electricity and fuel costs. But again, when you impact one sector, you can impact all the other sectors in the island as well, such as food security, water, education, emergency management. And while we have a number of cross-cutting projects, I'd like to talk about probably just two, since that's all the time we have today. One of the projects we're proud of is a recently completed project in the USVI, the microgrid project at the St. Croix Education Complex, or the Complex. The Complex is a public high school and vocational school based on the island of St. Croix that's also used in one of the territory's emergency hurricane shelters. Shelters like the one at the Complex are sometimes required to remain open long after storms like 2017's Hurricanes Irma and Maria have passed, providing a variety of services to community members like safe and clean sleeping accommodations for those who have been displaced, access to bathrooms and showers, health services, meals, access to power, and distribution of other disaster resources. In order to maintain services in an emergency shelter, a constant supply and reliable supply of energy is required for lighting, climate control, and the gamut. Usually, emergency shelters are outfitted with diesel generators to kick in when the power grid is out. Diesel generators can typically provide enough capacity, but they are also dependent on the fuel supply and can cut out when supply may be short due to supply chain issues. In order to address this, OIA awarded a pilot project to the Virgin Islands Energy Office to design and install a 100 kilowatt solar plus 480 kilowatt storage microgrid at the complex. This installation was recently completed and commissioned just last month. During normal active grid operations, the microgrid will aid in offsetting approximately 10% of the complex's $60,000 a month power bill, saving the complex money that can then be reallocated to programming for the students. During emergency shelter situations, the microgrid will enable the emergency shelter to function independently of the utility, reducing demand on the grid, as well as reducing the use of fossil fuel backup generators. This project will have a direct impact on students, as the complex is also home to CTEC, the Career and Technical Education Center. CTEC offers electric skilled labor training for students. So while CTEC students will gain valuable, while in operation, CTEC students will gain valuable hands-on learning experiences with the microgrid. With training, they may also be able to help support on-site operation and maintenance for the microgrid in years to come. This local capacity and expertise in future generations and maintenance will be crucial in achieving the territory's goal to implement more renewables as outlined in the strategic plan, as well as the local utilities plan to incorporate microgrids in other districts of the VI. The CTEC pilot serves as another learning tool in developing that workforce, and capacity and expertise is a major issue that we encounter throughout all of our insular areas. Another project that I'd like to mention, 14 time zones away, is on the island of Rota in the Commonwealth of Northern Marianas, CNMI, where OIA has established the Rota Aquaponic, or helped to establish the Rota Aquaponic Education and Training Center, which houses a program developed specifically for the island and the rest of the and to benefit the rest of the CNMI. This center will combine hydroponic and aquaculture systems to raise crops and fish in a recirculating system. The center farms tilapia and shrimp, and the water from those fish tanks is then drained and used to water garden beds where crops including taro, ginger, peppers, and eggplant are farmed, using the nutrient-rich fish waste to fertilize the plants. Then those plant roots filter the water, which is then recycled back into the fish tanks. Using this model, we hope to demonstrate that this small-scale system can be a method to viably and sustainably promote food security with low cost on island like Rota. They are also able to provide classes and teach residents and students to replicate this model at home and serve as an example on how to scale up and implement these projects. The aquaponics system uses very little electricity itself with pumps and motors for the fish tanks, but it is key and needed to keep those systems functioning and avoid catastrophic failure and fish death. Additionally, the center does require energy for its lights and offices and other operations, and that's where the OIA's EIC program comes in. With EIC funding, the center was able to install 2,500 square feet of solar PV panels, totaling 26 kilowatts, and that will completely offset the center's energy needs, including the needs to powering additional fish ponds and pumps in the future. By offsetting the cost of these power bills, the only cost the center now has to concern itself with is the cost of planting more seeds and buying new crops. Overall, OIA's EIC program is relatively small compared to some other of our programs throughout the United States government, but we address very key overlooked gaps in the territories, which themselves are often overlooked. Be it large solar panel projects, energy efficiency transmission of power plants, or demand-side management projects to increase energy efficiency by the end users, such as CNMI's Energy Efficiency Appliance Rebate Program, which we fund, or by large entities such as Guam's public schools with energy efficient retrofits. Any investment into the energy sector in the territories also brings with it a large impact on all sectors of life there. And as we're keenly aware of, water, food security, education, and emergency management sectors all benefit when we benefit more stable energy sector. So with that, I'll pass it on, but happy to take questions at the end.
We'll see if this works. Is this me? Nope. Okay, well, that's good. Let's see where I am. Right below the bottom one here? I don't think so. No? We loaded it on. It was just up here. The window that's open at the bottom. The window that's open on the bottom. There we go. Oh, I see it over here. I see. All right, now we're rocking and rolling. Thank you for that technical guidance. So I'm Scott Sklar, and I run a now 24-year-old global renewable energy ownership business. I sell nothing. It's focused on guiding local governments, infrastructure owners, pipelines, data centers, cell towers, hospitals in blending the entire portfolio of renewable energy, high-value energy efficiency, and energy storage. I have projects on every continent, including Antarctica. I am also a professor at George Washington University. I teach 3 interdisciplinary courses on sustainable energy, including the first course in the country on renewable energy and critical infrastructure, And this past summer, I was brought in here by Shar School to teach the first course in the country on renewable energy and critical infrastructure for low-income and underserved communities. So here we are. So I wanted to throw a couple of quick intro side. This is a September 2023 article at Brookings. Disasters are becoming more costly. U.S. needs a better way to distribute the burden. A lot of you are experts on that. This is the best one I've seen. Also September 2023, Scientific American on billion-dollar disasters in the U.S. since 1980. And you can see how precipitously they're growing. I am here to tell you it's going to get worse, not better. Bad news, sorry. This is what I use in my class. I love this slide. This is August 14th, 2003, satellite photo. And you can see at nighttime, a part of the United States is dark. Here is where a tree limb fell at a power plant in Ohio and knocked out 8 states and parts of Canada from 3 days to 3 weeks. $68 billion worth of damage because of this. And this was human error. This was not a terrorist. This was a tree limb. So this is McKinsey and Company. This is their 12 disruptive technologies. And the right half is what a lot of you at this conference are really involved in. Internet, information of things, cloud technology, advanced and autonomous robotics. On the left-hand side is a lot of things that I'm involved in: renewable energy, advanced materials, energy storage. And guess what? I use the right side to drive my hybrid or microgrid systems. And then the industry, the Internet of Things industry and communications industry use my technologies to make sure they are 100% online. There is no way to have a diesel engine and a natural gas generator ensure something's 100% online. In fact, I get hired not because of my beard, which hurts my feelings. I get hired when there's a catastrophic failure of the traditional technologies, so I come in and try to resolve that. We are also moving from centralized power to distributed clean power along transmission lines, at transmission substations, along distribution lines, at distribution substations, and at the end user. And it is a mixture of, again, high-value energy efficiency. It is always less expensive to save energy than generated from any source, a blend of renewables, and then a blend of energy storage. And we have huge amount of resources. This is, since the Inflation Reduction Act passed, this is a manufacturing renaissance. This is a map of new manufacturing plants just of wind, solar, and battery storage, but we actually have 110 manufacturing plants being built here in the United States, primarily attracting private sector money. These plants are in the billions of dollars. Some of them have just begun and opened up operating. By the end of this year and middle of next year, all of them will be operating. This is a reindustrialization of the United States into this next age of energy. And this is what's going to change in terms of clean energy manufacturing capacity existing, which is red, moving into US, which is lighter color, whatever that color is. And more than half of US electric generating capacity in the United States coming online every year is renewable energy. Solar at this point leads. A few years ago it was wind, and we're seeing big moves in geothermal and biogas and some of the marine and water technologies. So this whole meeting is sort of about community approaches, and I work with all of them: community purchasing, community solar, cooperative purchasing, on-bill financing. So community purchase programs are fundamentally usually government anointed. And so this is where community groups can coordinate and basically coordinate so that groups of renters, homeowners, small businesses can have a series of technology options because they're group purchase, they're lower in cost because the installers are pre-certified based on cost and capability, so the installations actually go in better, less trouble. You can get a wider adoption. Everybody's taking a risk, and it's basically 15 or 20% off of market because you're doing this kind of group purchasing. There's a lot of programs like that, and Arlington has one for solar. I'm doing some work with the state of Connecticut on heat pumps. It's not just solar energy. This is a great slide on tools and actions on regulatory on-bill financing, community renewables with some links. This is on-bill financing. This is a change agent. And the United States started it, but now other countries are following suit. This is where someone, remember, half of all residents lease their resident. They don't own their resident. And half of commercial leases their commercial. They don't own their commercial. So this, you can use the meter as the way to finance your energy efficiency or renewable energy. And it has nothing to do with your credit rating. So if you give up your lease next year, the person who takes that, whether it's insulation, double pane windows, smart appliances, solar water heating, solar voltaics, small wind, or heat pumps, you can put that on basically on your bill and amortize it. And guess what? The amortization cost is less than what you would pay for electricity or natural gas. So you win immediately, cash positive. And it's not on your credit rating. It's tied to that meter. This is a game changer, and it opens up particularly to lower income and small businesses that frankly don't have a big bank account or can't really take tax credits, which are the incentives right now. This is Illinois program, started in 2022, and so this is a on-bill financing and savings up to $1,000 annually, and doing it, and it's solar and energy efficiency. National Energy Laboratory, the U.S. Department of Energy lab in Golden, Colorado, talks about community solar. Now, community solar is a different concept, also started here in the United States, but now being used globally. And that is, we look at areas that do not have reliable electricity or have bad power quality, meaning surges or sags in the grid. And by the way, guess what? Lower income people have the worst surges and sags. But even in here, Great Arlington, Virginia, I have 30 people in my neighborhood who have lost their refrigerators due to electric surges. And the utility doesn't pay for that. Tough noogies. So what they do is they look for a community, they look for some land, whether it's given by the local government, a university, a lot of old industrial plants that are out that the company wants to show. And they basically lease it for $1, and a solar firm, let's say, comes in, and then they go to local community groups and basically get folks to sign contracts for the lower cost electricity than what they're paying. So someone who lives in, by the way, historic preservation protected buildings where a lot of times you can't put solar, or obviously you don't own your multifamily home or your apartment building, you can still get green electricity. A lot of times these community solar programs have anchor customers as well to help to make the people financing the project more comfortable. So we have a Walgreens or IKEA, sometimes a Walmart, local universities, and local government buildings, and they help do it. It's very successful, and I am telling you, it's one of the biggest growing parts of the U.S. energy economy. There's also a lot of potential for parking lots and rooftops. This is a great article on public storage, which we have like 4 or 5 right down here, 10 blocks from this building, with big flat rooftops. They're great for community solar programs. They're great roofs. There's other ways to use projects. This one is looking at Detroit, where the electric light system, the street lights are so bad. So this was an off-grid project to bring in street lighting, and it's worked very successfully. Community solar, I co-authored with some of my colleagues a community solar handbook that's available, and I will be offering a tour of my two 100% self-powered buildings, 2 blocks from this building. My home up front with that giant inflatable SpongeBob is in front of it, and it has solar water heating, photovoltaics to a huge battery system, direct exchange geothermal heat pump, R38 insulation, thermal barrier pane in the attic, and double pane argon-filled windows. So you can't get anything more energy efficient or totally. And then my little back office building behind there, solar roofing shingles, a wind turbine, a hydrogen fuel cell, and a web-enabled battery bank with R50 insulation and super insulating windows. So I have buildings that maximize energy efficiency. I do tours primarily for architects and engineers. And for those of you that are at this conference or you know anybody else, you can come tomorrow or email me, and I do tours once a week. And the last thing, and then I'll shut up, is we are on this planet together, and we are on together no matter if you don't like the people, if you have beards, you don't have beards, you gray hair or no hair, we're on this together. So it's up to us to make this all work. And I just want you to remember that. Thank you for hearing me out. Next. Was this yours that I did the first time?
Yeah.
Is that you?
Yeah.
Oh, unbelievable.
Okay, let's do this. Good afternoon to all of you. I'm Javier Baella. I am the treasurer of REMCOOP. REM stands for Renewable Energy Management Cooperative. And I've been a professor of finance for the last 31 years, about to retire. But this cooperative is a workers' cooperative, was formed in 2019 and became an energy cooperative in early 2023. We're authorized by the Puerto Rico Energy Board to produce, transmit, distribute, and work in all sort of senses with energy. And my talk here today is on our experience during Hurricane Maria and how the interruption in electricity and communications created real havoc on the island. Okay, I clearly remember on Tuesday, September the 16th, I was on the phone with a sister who lives here in the States. And she was asking, how are things going? You know, the storm is coming. And I'm looking at a live, in the computer, I'm looking at a live NOAA picture, and I'm saying, this monster, there's no way we are coming unscathed from this thing. Is gonna hit us very, very, very hard. And I said goodbye, and then immediately I jumped in my car. I went to the bank and took out a couple $1,000 because I knew the economy was going to be a cash economy for, I hoped, a couple of weeks. It turned out for commercial banks to be over 30 days. So all 3,500 square miles of the 3-4 islands that constitute the unincorporated territory of Puerto Rico is hit heavily. There are some friends here from Puerto Rico who have shared their experience, and some of them were there when this happened. Okay, and it was a Category 4 storm at maximum winds of 155, just 2 miles per hour shy of a Category 5. But it was really, really strong. Okay? Now, what was different between cooperatives and the 7 cooperative principles that govern all types of cooperatives Ours is a workers' cooperative, but what you call in here the savings and loan cooperatives, we call in there cooperativas de ahorro y crédito, which is savings and loans in Spanish. They don't have the same, the clearinghouse is different. It's called Banco Cooperativo or Cooperative Bank. And these people did a very smart thing. Silently, they took out millions of dollars and they deposited those funds in camiones blindados, the armored cars, thank you. And they distributed them across the island, different points, silently. Right after the hurricane hit, the next day, they would be visiting their affiliate cooperatives, savings and loan cooperatives, and they would provide liquidity to members of the cooperatives. Whereas regular banks, there was no power, so the ATMs didn't work, the branches were closed. These people would go and with personal computers, laptops, they would lend people, they would lend customers money, and they would jot down the information on an Excel spreadsheet, and at night run the clearinghouse by hand at the Banco Cooperativo headquarters. So they provided liquidity to cooperative members while commercial banks took anywhere from 3 weeks to a month to open their doors, okay? And that made a big difference. And it was one of the factors that really, when I was approached by two common friends into forming this cooperative, and I remember that I had been, I thought about it and took money out. Had I not done that, I would have had a problem for a month because there was no liquidity at commercial banks except for cooperatives. Okay, so as I was discussing with Linton the other day, power and comms go together. No power, no comms, and without communications, a lot of the our modern world just doesn't work. Okay. Okay, talked about this. Let's see what this is in here. I think I've said a lot of that.
Are you stuck?
Huh? No. I'm just looking at this and I'm just summarizing
Oh, all right.
what I did. No, that's okay. So different from the other territories, our goal is to be 100% from renewables in 2050, not 2040. So we're giving ourselves a little more time. Right now, we're very, very far from that. I think the best estimates are that we're now producing 4% of our energy using renewables. Okay, the most optimistic of all. So we want to transform a dumb grid into a smart grid.
Here. Good.
Yeah.
Got it.
And what REMCOOP does, we work with EPCers and we do the financing / administrative part, because even though I'm a double E, but in general terms, engineers are not very good with finance. You know, we're good technologically, but not necessarily administrating with finance. And one of the problems we have in Puerto Rico, the way regs are written, is that we cannot monetize the ITC locally. So we have to find a partner in the mainland who can invest in the usual equity-based vehicles. Now that we have the direct pay, the solution we're looking at is having a company in the US receive the ITC and then monetize it. The makers, or the Modified Accelerated Cost Recovery System depreciation, which adds another 10 to 15%. That's going to be more difficult for us to monetize, but still the 30% in the ITC is very good and lowers the cost, and especially for low and middle income communities. That is the key for them to be able to install the systems. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Tiffany.
Let's see. Let's see. Is this, can you see that okay? Okay. Great. Well, I'm here to talk to you about FirstNet and how our dependable broadband network, connected responder, and continual collaboration with public safety and feedback with public safety helps our public safety operators meet the ever-changing world that we live in, planned and unplanned events. So in August of 2023, wildfires started in Maui and destroyed the town of Lahaina. Oh, let me move back. Sorry, I want to move this. Destroyed the town of Lahaina. Most communication infrastructure was destroyed or rendered inoperable. And at the same time, public safety, police, fire, EMS, emergency management, 911 centers, search and rescue. During the event and immediately after, we're trying to save lives. And how do they do that without communications? And that is just one of the many reasons why FirstNet was built. FirstNet does keep a deployable on the island of Maui as well as other islands, and we were able to quickly move those The Maui one was up almost immediately. The other islands were able to bring them in, and we were able to set up pockets of connectivity for public safety to aid with those search and rescue operations. So I am not here to sell you anything. I am part of the federal government. I work for the FirstNet Authority under Commerce, and I'm the .gov, FirstNet.gov, and I'm here with our partners AT&T. They are the FirstNet.com section, and FirstNet is the product which public safety can use. We support the nationwide public safety broadband network. So that is our ultimate mission. It was created because public safety needed a dedicated spectrum. They needed resources that would not allow them to be caught in the congestion of commercial users. And so FirstNet was born out of some legislation in 2012, the Middle Class Tax and Relief Act, and it was actually a recommendation from the 9/11 Commission report. It was the last recommendation from that report that was enacted. And FirstNet since then has been built in close cooperation with public safety and our partner AT&T. So let me see. Right now, we have over 27,000 public safety agencies using FirstNet, using over 5.5 million connections. And FirstNet is built on top of AT&T's commercial infrastructure, which supports approximately 220 million. So on that infrastructure, these 5.5 million connections get priority and preemption. So when networks are congested, they are not throttled. They are not slowed. Other commercial users may be. 911 is the exception. 911 calls get still top priority. So people can still reach out to their public safety answering points. But I want to talk to you a little bit about the partnership. So AT&T has committed, we have a 25-year contract. We gave them use of some very valuable spectrum that the FCC gave to us per Congress. And they have built, I'm sorry, I keep saying they're going to, but they have. Last year, we finished building out the initial stages of Band 14 across the nation. So, and they made preemption and priority use active day one of the contract. So public safety didn't have to wait for this to come about. And AT&T is responsible for building this program, and we are responsible for making sure that the program evolves in a way that meets public safety's needs. So I'm not going to speak to this slide. I just want you guys to have a chance to read some of the features. Now, we, as a federal government agency, we're independent, and we are set up in some ways like a business. We have a CEO, we have a board of directors, we have the Public Safety Advisory Committee. Public Safety Advisory Committee is 42 members. We have federal, state, local, territorial, and tribal public safety on that. We have representatives from all the major public safety organizations, NEMA, International Fire Chiefs, all the major disciplines: fire, EMS, police, or law enforcement, 911 centers, and emergency management. So we are in constant consultation with these organizations to make sure that their members and their members' needs are represented in how the network develops. We also have a staff that goes out and educates the public safety on this program, as well as collects feedback from them on what they need. Where do they need coverage? Where do they need additional capacity? And we come back and we take our investment dollars. We have approximately $18 billion over the next 25 years that we can reinvest into the network. So we make sure that those specialized services that public safety needs are met. Last year, my team and I, we had over 1,600 engagements and reached over 45,000 public safety. So our investments are informed by the feedback that we get. We help public safety determine, or we ask them, where do you need coverage? The national parks, where do you not have coverage? And we've built in those areas. Rural is a problem in this country. It doesn't make financial sense for a commercial mobile service provider to go in and build towers where they're not going to have any subscribers. However, public safety oftentimes operates in those areas. And so it is part of the contract that we build in rural areas, and we've done that to expand the nation's coverage. But sometimes, say in the mountains of Idaho, you do not want to build towers there for environmental reasons, as well as it'll probably just be burned along with the fires that keep going through there. And you want to make sure that fire suppression, firefighting teams can move assets as they are needed. And so we've invested heavily in deployables. We have some in the exhibit hall, which I hope you'll come see. We're doing some really, really innovative work and have some special permissions from FCC, which aren't anywhere else, to allow our public safety to connect where commercial services just can't match that connectivity. So we are really investing in our dependable network and our connected responder. All of the IoT that goes into firefighting, law enforcement, body-worn cameras. Is it secure? Does it support end-to-end encryption? Can public safety use it? Oftentimes, and still this exists, but the problem we are trying to minimize it and being successful in many areas. But hardened equipment is so expensive, and public safety doesn't have a lot of money to purchase specialized devices. But with the power of our partnerships with the PSAC, the organizations lobbying as one voice, with AT&T as our partner, they can go to Apple or Samsung and say, hey, we want this built into this device, and we want it affordable. And so we have made tremendous progress in providing these kinds of hardened equipment and advancing those or operationalizing those advanced technologies for public safety. One of the things that FirstNet does is it allows public safety to uplift, temporarily give privileges to extended primary users, utilities, transportation, the tree trimmers, the snow plows in the event of a disaster, because if public safety can't move, then they can't get to you. So allowing the entire public safety ecosystem to be able to communicate in times of crisis is important. So let me go back. Let's see. This is just kind of our connected vehicle. This does have some deployables on it. We have some fire trucks that have drones on them, so they can fly them in the air. We also have, we didn't bring any drones for today's demo. We used to have actually a blimp that would cover an entire city for up to 2 weeks, which is great after hurricanes. So they're all different. They are, they're the size of my purse, and then they're the size of a blimp. So, and these are available to public safety at no cost. Remember, I'm not selling anything. But imagine you are an emergency manager and you need coverage, and gosh, do I have it in the budget to get an extra piece of equipment, and who does the contract, and gosh, I just hope it all works out. You don't have to do that anymore. With FirstNet, you just call and you say, hey, this is my communication need. We look at the network. We see, what's happening to the network. And okay, it comes at no cost, a deployable solution to make sure that the public safety needs are met. So there's no extra contract. It's just part of your user fee, which is also has to be competitive, but that's a whole different story, the finances behind it. I don't want to get into that too much, but public safety does subscribe to this. So instead of paying AT&T Commercial or Verizon or T-Mobile or anyone for their cell phone, and FirstNet is so much more than cell phones, I'm just using that as an example, they would pay FirstNet. And that way we're self-sustaining. So let me go to some use cases. So because of FirstNet, Alexandria, Virginia actually was the first city during COVID. They moved all of their 911 operations to remote. And the 911 operators operated out of their home. They had these Wi-Fi extending mega range, so they could definitely get connectivity from their home. And I know we all experienced difficulty with everyone working from home, everyone using the same broadband. We didn't want 911 operators to have any of that. So we set them up. They all went home. They were able to take 911 calls successfully. The entire state of Tennessee and Kansas is now doing that. They have used FirstNet to support their 911 data sharing, mobile dispatching, and redundancies for all their 911 centers. So let's see, in Maine, there are islands that are 2 hours away from any hospital. Someone gets hurt, they have an ambulance, they have to drive them to this hospital, and hopefully their ambulance connects to one tower and then they drop. And then they connect to another tower and then they drop. And so it's just this connectivity dropping. Now with mega range in the ambulances, they can, their ambulance can actually reach the cell towers 25 miles away instead of a mile, and so they maintain connectivity the whole way. It's also increasing our ability to support telehealth. They may not need to send them to the hospital. They may need to just consult with a doctor. So we're doing amazing things with telehealth. Virtual EOCs, emergency operations centers. Emergency managers can operate out of a vehicle. They can send a message to iPause Open and send a wireless emergency alert using FirstNet, and they can geo-target it for the public. So the public is directly benefiting, not just because their public safety is being more effective, but they can get more messages. We're building more towers that support the WEEs. During the recent bridge collapse in Baltimore, I was on the phone with the EPA that morning. The feds flooded that area. The media flooded that area. When the bridge collapsed, there were some repeaters on top of the bridge that were destroyed, as well as wind sensors. But the actual place that they used as the operations center was not impacted, but a cord had been cut. So they lost power inside the building. So we sent out technicians right away. We have a 24/7, 365 support staff that go out all over the country to support public safety on the ground. But Coast Guard, EPA, NTSB, the Army Corps of Engineers, they are all FirstNet subscribers, and were able to use Band 14 and AT&T coverage, and they were not slowed down at all, even when the media descended. Media had some connectivity problems, but they have their, that's not as important as making sure public safety can get what they need. So I know I'm running out of time, but I did want to just briefly mention that as the government representative for broadband and public safety, we work closely with other departments within the federal government to support broadband expansion. Since COVID, over $80 billion has been allocated to close the digital divide. Most of that is being allocated by NTIA, who is our parent organization within Commerce. And we're working with public safety to make sure they know how to advocate for themselves. NTIA defines a community anchor. Public safety is one of those definitions within a community anchor. So they qualify for this money. How do you go out and advocate for yourself? So we are part of that education. NTIA has just released a new infrastructure permitting and environmental mapping tool. I think this was earlier this month, so it's brand new. The FCC is creating better maps, not only where broadband exists, everyone's very familiar with that, but the FCC just started, it's called the 60105 map, and that is where it maps where the federal government is going to be investing in broadband. So it's supposed to reduce redundancy and eliminate waste. So you don't have the Department of Agriculture approving a grant the same place NTIA is approving a grant. So everyone is supposed to put their information in there to make sure that we're not spending $2 to build, or putting 2 grants into building the same tower. And then again, supporting WEES. I did want to put a little plug in June in Chicago. We're having a 5x5 where we're going to be talking more about emergency communications. We're doing this in partnership with NIST, also with the Department of Commerce. So we hope you can join us if you're interested, but I'm happy to take any questions after this, and I'll close out. So thanks.
Thank you, Tiffany.
I know a lot of people on the county, the beach is here, but we want a blue. Right now, I want to put it up. Like, we can use a blue.
So I'll ask one question or so of everybody, but then I'd open to questions. And for Jason Nakoa, how do you incentivize people to work across sectors, to get the power and the comms people to talk together, or the power, the energy, the water, the food? What's the best thing the federal government can do to incentivize that?
I don't know what necessarily the best thing is, but what we have taken on to do from OIA is just bring folks together. So one of the things that we're now in our 4th year, I think, of doing is the Territorial Climate Infrastructure Workshop. And the goal to do out of that workshop, we hosted in Honolulu just because that's kind of halfway between the Pacific places and the continental United States, and VI. But bring all of the programs with the federal government together, bring the actual, not the politicians or people like me, but the people who actually know what they're talking about, the grant writers, the grant graders, the people who make the recommendations to me and to the assistant secretary on what to fund. Bring those people into the same room and talk about, look, these are all the streams of money, these are the pots of money that we have. What are the highest needs that you have in your community? And what kind of projects can we bring together that bridge some of those gaps, taking a step back and looking at the more holistic picture. In an island, I feel maybe it's just second nature. You just have to make whatever you have work because there's not the ability to just drive to a different country or state or whatever. So it's a lot of duct tape solutions and palm fronds, weaving things together. But I found that seems to be working pretty well. We got a number of really impactful projects out of that, and then hopefully, they were just in the implementation phase. Now we're moving into, or they're just in the funding and approval stage. Now we're moving into implementation and hope to see the impacts of those soon.
Thank you. Scott, what are we missing in this area in terms of incentives? What can the local governments, more particularly public-private partnerships, could be done better in this area than we're doing now?
Well, I think we need to evolve federal, state, and local incentives to being more.
If you grab the mic just for
Oh, sorry. My daughter says she can hear me in
Oh, we can hear you. Just
San Diego without a mic. All right. So, federal, state, and local government incentives need to have the authority to leverage each other. They're sort of in their own traffic lane. And, you know, the private sector and some of us involved in that try to put them together. But in fact, we needed to make it so it's expected, not just a standalone incentive, so that you can really sort of nurture how both tax incentives and grants and building codes and zoning and all sorts of things can be oozed into a sort of a joint progress or project approach. And it sometimes gets very, very complicated. And I know there are great minds on how to do it. I've had some personal experience on some of that, but it needs to become more common. And we need to teach that more at universities. And we need local government actors that have that kind of experience to be empowered to do it. And sometimes it should be done on a trial basis. Let's see how it works for 2 years. And so that's to me the big thing. Everything's sort of rutted in their traffic lane.
So one of the things along those lines we've been working with, especially in Puerto Rico, is this issue of regulatory sandboxes.
Yes, well,
Where
that's
you
what I'm
just
talking about.
try it. You say just put something together, permitting, for example, and what could you do to try something? So Javier, for you, what DARPA? I was with DARPA about a year ago, and they actually have a project on working. The question is: suppose you had an apocalyptic event. Right? It could be a major earthquake, it could be a nuclear explosion, and the question is: how could you get $1 billion into a region like that in an accountable way?
Quite a question. Since Puerto Rico declared bankruptcy in early 2016, we have had an oversight management board that's been sort of a co-government along with the government board, the governor and the rest of the mayors and what have you, that were elected by the public. So I think that would be the only way to have federal funds given to the island on such a magnitude, because we came to a point where we went bankrupt in 2016. So,
Hey, Jorge, you know, a blimp that drops money. I'm just saying. Maybe
Okay.
that's
Hey, Tiffany, what was the AT&T had a little burble a couple of weeks ago, and how did that affect FirstNet? Well, the fact that the AT&T network had an outage for a while, how did that affect FirstNet? And if it didn't, how were you independently protected?
Well, FirstNet has, is this on? Okay, FirstNet has a separate physical core that manages public safety traffic, prioritizes them. So that was not impacted. However, there is a lot of shared infrastructure, and unfortunately, this outage was caused by a coding error done in the middle of the night, and it was a nation. It hit several different areas of the country. It was not nationwide, but it was national, and it went down around 2:30 in the morning, I believe, February 22nd. I know it was a big deal, and public safety was actually prioritized in fixing this. So the FirstNet or public safety FirstNet users were only impacted for 3 hours, whereas AT&T commercial was impacted for about 12 hours. So AT&T, and I do need to give them props again, I don't work for them, but they did prioritize, they honored their commitment to us, to the government, to Congress, to public safety, to prioritize fixing the connection between whatever it was that was going wrong and the FirstNet core. So that we're doing a lot of after action reports right now. We're looking at how we can be more responsive, getting additional help to our users when this type of thing happens. There were still some public safety operations that were impacted. Fortunately, it was very early in the morning for most of the country, but that, disasters happen, planned events happen 24/7. So we really need to be better, but I think that when it comes to commercial versus public safety, the difference was definitely shown that day.
Thank you. Open to your questions. Mike?
Lynn, in the roughly, 2003 timeframe, maybe we had the first mention of resilience in a presidential directive.
First mention of what?
In the presidential directive 21, mention of resilience. And you and I talked about a national sustainable security infrastructure initiative a lot after the pandemic in the 2009 timeframe. But the concern is we're at 2024, and if you look at the types of advances that China has made, for example, with Huawei, with 5G, and now towards 6G, it looks like that we will have a very hard time even competing on 6G. And the concern is that we are acting like an old hegemon compared to an emerging hegemon and not getting ahead on things that are potentially strategic. So like in the finance discussion, China is eating our lunch in a lot of the technology projects around the world now. The big banks go in to capitalize something in Latin America, and China basically wins the contracts because of what they're willing to do and their agility on finance. And it's really interesting what's happening with FirstNet Authority, but if Huawei is now in 170 countries and dominating 47 countries and stealing things on the back end of all those countries, including our allies in Africa, we're going to have a hard time moving forward unless we can go into beyond 5G and 6G and outcompete. So I'm just wondering what you're thinking from a strategic point of view on the national sustainable security infrastructure going forward.
Well, I'm not sure that's really the focus of this panel. I mean, this was more at an individual community level, what the communities can do to leverage by multi-sector approaches. But let me just open to the panel.
Well, can I mention the connection then? The connection for us is within the resilient American communities, we want to be able to do distributed, collectively intelligent grids, but we need more advanced technology to be able to do that.
Comments on competition on 5G, 6G?
Well, I mean, it's not all communications that drives it, but that aside, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but we actually have, we're doing microgrids on every military base now. And we can, and in many cases, we're creating our own network because it has to be absolutely cyber-proof. So some of these national things, I mean, we're hacking the Chinese networks too. So you're going to see a lot of local networks that are hardened, and yeah, they ride on the back, but for a short period. And we're doing a lot of different approaches to interconnectivity between technologies and locally that are sidestepping a lot of this, and I think actually may be able to pole vault over some of what you're putting out. And so that's where I think is how we get around it. We'd be smarter and more agile.
One of the things I encourage is tomorrow during the lab visits day, we have a 5G, 6G critical infrastructure interface lab here in this building right next door. And so I'd encourage you, any of you interested, to go up there and take a look at it and talk to some of the people who are working on this. Yeah, you all should have gotten a survey to sign up for the lab tours. We have about 4 or 5 different tours, including an opportunity to visit Scott's net zero facility. So let me take one more question if there is one. Thank you.
Yeah. Could I ask a slightly dumb question here? So, the relationship between communities and municipal government, right? To what degree is community just another name for municipal government? And to what degree are we talking about, for example, groups of communities that are in separate municipalities but are physically close to each other? Like, just a little bit about the jurisdictional issues, municipality, community, county. You know, how are we thinking about communities as it relates to these various tiers of local government?
Well, actually, that's not a dumb question, but let me put it this way. When I talk about that, I talk about local governments or counties, cities, really. And then communities are groups within those of any dimension. It could be agriculture, it could be underserved communities, it could be ethnic communities, it could be different kinds of business communities. So, and generally when I get brought into a project, I don't just talk to the community that brings me in, I talk to that whole architecture around them. Because by the way, they all need each other. Half the time they just don't know it. So, and by the way, if they all have common issues in sustainable communications or sustainable energy, continuity of energy or food production, they all share it actually. They may call it different things. And once you realize that, hey, it's easier to track money and support when it affects a couple of communities in a different aspect than just one sitting around by themselves thinking, I have the only problem in the world. And so I think that's really the good news, is we're starting to see more and more of that kind of social interconnectivity that we didn't have or we don't see on the national political scene, but we do see at the local level.
If you haven't seen it, there's a really interesting book by James and Deb Fallows called Our Towns. And they spent about a couple of years flying around the U.S. in a Piper or Cessna, a small private airplane. And their point is America from 3,500 feet is completely different from America at 35,000 feet or America at sea level. Because it's sea level, you zip by the exit and you see the McDonald's and the Wendy's and you go on. 35,000 feet, you see the crop circles. And 3,500 feet, you fly up and you see the rust out factories on the edge of town. But you begin to see the beginnings of community renewal downtown. And you sit and talk to people and they may say, our state legislature is worthless and our government is all, Washington is all corrupt or whatever. But we're not that unhappy with what's happening here, because it's something we can control and we can work together and so on and so forth. And there are often common standards of dignity, justice, and fairness and things like that. So let me just get in one last point from each of the panel members and we will call it a day. Sir.
More than anything, just Lynn, want to thank you for organizing this and bringing us together. I think this is a very worthwhile topic to talk about, how we can kind of all coordinate and cooperate more to make more than we could separately. I think that's absolutely what is needed, especially in the jurisdictions that we oversee. And to answer a question for that we got on the communities, in my mind, communities, whatever level makes sense in the context. Be it for us, usually it's island wide, but that changes and depends on what you're talking about. It could be regional, it could be village. So appreciate bringing us out here and everything that the panelists had to say.
Mahalo.
Mahalo.
Me? I just want to say I want to thank Lynn Wells, who I started when we had this at Fort McNair, and he's still sticking with this and doing a great job. So give him a round of applause.
Thank you. Javier.
Yes, well, thank you, Linton, for inviting REMCOOP to this event. And my words are, there's never enough preparation to face a disaster. You never do enough So don't cut yourselves short in preparing for a disaster.
Tiffany.
Well, thank you. This has been a wonderful opportunity to speak to you guys and share the message of FirstNet and what we're doing. But I was thinking during the luncheon talk about the intersection of intent and money. And, you know, I just think that so many things that she said resonated with me, and the way that the FirstNet Authority is really a unique partnership. It's first of its kind, the way that we've set up the contract, where the contractor pays the government. The contractor uses existing infrastructure. And I think that if you guys are interested, I hope you'll reach out, because there are a lot of really great lessons out there that FirstNet Authority would love to share with you about how we've set this contract up to benefit public safety. It's really unique. You're not going to find anything out there in the federal government that's like it. Hopefully in the future you will, because we're having such great success, as evidenced by so many public safety rely on it. But I just think I love hearing all the creative ideas and the innovative thinking of doing things differently, and the FirstNet business model is one of those things. So I hope you'll look into it. But I just appreciate hearing from all of the comments that I've heard in the sessions. It's been very, very eye-opening and educational for me. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Remember, in any kind of these community things, sociology always tops technology. And so how do you get the people to buy in? Okay, please, the next hour is set aside to go and mingle and learn about the terrific exhibits we have here. I'm sorry? And we have student posters out here in the for judging, and also there's a survey that Kathy mentioned that's out there. For tomorrow, we've got a whole series of labs to visit, or there's a Shark Tank, there's some lightning rounds, so I encourage you to please sign up in that sheet for where you'd like to go. Thanks very much.